We've all met that person who just exudes positivity and energy and doesn't let life's bumps bring them down. Well, that is today's guest, Millionaire Williams, who is the author of Military Mom on a Mission. She shares today her personal story of loving a son who was plagued with PTSD and other more significant healthcare challenges when he returned from the Iraqi war, and how she used that as a platform to help other families who are in similar situations. I hope you enjoy today's episode. And if you do, please subscribe and share with all of your friends.
Yeah. Good morning, Andrea. How are you? Yes. It, yeah, to say the least. Yes. Got it. Hmm. Absolutely. For years, I kind of felt that I would probably write a book one day, you know. But sometimes life has a way of speeding up your process to help you engage a little bit sooner than what you may have had a date and set time for. And with that being said, my son had joined the military. We're from LA at the time, going to a family reunion. We flew into Virginia Beach, where my sister lived at the time, and her sons. So the idea was we'll fly into Virginia Beach, take two vehicles, take the kids, they can follow us, and we'll have fun along the route going to North Carolina. Well, unbeknownst to my sister and myself, my son had gone along with his cousins who had already joined the military prior to us arriving. And they joined the Marine Corps, which she was very disturbed because she served in the Air Force for 22 years. So, that rivalry already, yeah, it always exists in families, that particular dynamic. And so they talked my son into going down to the recruiter's office, and he was 23 at the time, so he didn't need his mom's signature. So you know where I'm going with that story. We were on a vacation. Yeah, yeah, with yeah, with his round trip ticket and no one sitting in his seat coming back home, and yeah, yeah. So this was all a total shock. He was working in Los Angeles on Wilshire Boulevard, one of the busiest known spaces in Los Angeles, and he was working in sales, doing very well. Go figure. Well, anyway, um, move the story along. He joins, so they come back to the house. Oh, mom, guess what I did? Oh, we under the buddy pass, and I'm like, buddy, what are you talking about? Mom, I'm gonna be a Marine like my cousins. We're going together. I sat there and I thought they were just joking around with my sister and I. He winds up staying there. I guess real security for me at that point was we were not in active war at the time when he joined. So I was like, okay, and this country had not been in war in God knows how many years. So that never, but 9/11 happens, the world, the narrative changes. Um, he was stationed, deployed, should I say, deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan for 9 months. So that was a very troublesome time, just knowing he had to be there. And he got back. We had a huge celebration in California because that's where he grew up, all his friends. And I walked into the restroom, and my girlfriend comes in the restroom. We're talking, and she says to me, Million, have you taken a look at Jerome's eyes? And I'm like, what do you mean have I taken a look at my son's eyes? My son is home from war. He's here with all his body parts. He's here. Oh my God. And she says, no, I need you to stop a moment, stop being Million, and look into your son's eyes and tell me what you see. And she was very adamant about it. She's an RN, so, she's got some backdrop there. So I said, oh, okay. I walk out, and I always have called my son Champion. So I said, Champion, give Mom another hug. I'm just so glad you're home. And I looked into his eyes with intentional look. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know who this person is. It was like somebody took a stake and just shoved it through my heart, because I'm like, how did I miss all of this? How did I not see my son suffering in some way, and suffering in a way I knew nothing about? Yes. Yes, it was. It was. And, it just became a horrible scenario of life to have to endure, for anyone to have to see your loved one become somebody that they weren't. When I looked into his eyes, there was this stare that, okay, physically, this is my son, but the cliche, looking into someone's eyes, the window of their soul. Looking in his eyes, I didn't know who this person was. It felt very foreign to me. It felt like, I'm not sure. This looks like my son. So, and I had to put on this facade because all these people here at a jovial time, we're at a restaurant, we're all having fun, everybody's glad to see him. But I had this dark cloud that hovered over my head as I stood there, still trying to process, and then also trying to maintain, you know, the jovial type of expectation for that dynamic that's happening. And so, you know, yeah, it was a lot. Mm, yes, 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 exactly. And you don't have the skill set to really help them navigate life because you're struggling in the sense that you don't know what to do. And where do you go? And, 9/11 happened many years ago. So at that time, PTSD wasn't even getting the awareness that we share now. It's a household name. Most people know, they've heard of PTSD. They know enough to know that it has something to do with mental health challenges. They may not know that it's post traumatic stress disorder, that that's what the acronym stands for, but they certainly have heard PTSD. And really at that time, I didn't even know it was PTSD. So what winds up happening, okay, because we're here in Los Angeles doing this big party, we got to go back to North Carolina, okay, where the base is, where he's stationed, and where I'm now living. And so when we got back, I went over to the general's office because I'm going to start at the top. I'm not one of those ones that waste the time. I'm not. If you're not a decision maker, love you, but you can't help me because you're going to still have to go up and talk to somebody else. But the general was actually over in Iraq at that time, so I didn't get to see him. So I'm going down the chain and I'm telling them, look, something's wrong with my son. They didn't even detect it at that time. Again, like I said, PTSD, I brought that to their attention only because my best girlfriend, she's a nurse, and she's the one that gave me the term, so they didn't even understand what was going on with him. Well, move the story along. 6 weeks after he gets out of the military, he has a full mental breakdown. Full on. I mean, running through the house like a madman. I mean, I never saw this behavior. Yes. So my husband and I, we wind up calling the cops. And here I am. I've never called the cops on any of my children and never thought that I ever would. But then I'm like, he's not a criminal, but what do I do? I don't know what to do. You're just lost. So when the cops came, and because it's a military town, everybody understands this, you know? And so there were two cops. One was a female, the other one was a male. And so when they got there, he was sitting out on the porch. He had calmed down. My husband and I was standing outside talking with him. And they walked up, and, I had given all the information when we called. So they were prepared to know, he's, military. And so I spoke to the female first and, I gave her the backdrop, and she says, I understand what you're going through. And I'm looking at this woman like, you're a cop. How do you understand what we're going through with us? She's like, my husband, he's been in the military for 15 years. He's been deployed 4 times. We have children at home. And every time he gets back from deployment, we go through all of this. And I was like, oh my God. My son's not married, no children, but I'm thinking, my God, how do you have this going on with small children? For them to have to now see this and deal with it. I was like feeling worse for her than what I was even dealing with my son. So they told us, one or two things. We can take him over to get him evaluated, but if we do, we'll have to put him in handcuffs. And I'm like, no, you're not putting my son in handcuffs. He's not a criminal. And they said, well, do you feel safe enough for him to drive? We'll drive in front of you. You can follow us. I said, yeah, he's okay now. We're good. So we got him over there. My husband and I and one of my cousins, she came over to just lend some support. We're there for 5 hours sitting, waiting. The doctor comes out. Oh, your son has PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, and severe psychosis. And I'm like, at one time. And I said to him, are you a robot or something? Are you human? I said, how dare you come out to me? We've been sitting here 5.5 hours. You've been evaluating my son. And you come out here like you're reading off a menu? This is a human being you're talking about. This is a family you're talking about who loves their loved one that's in there with you. How dare you? I felt like I was in the ring just getting knocked out each time and had to get back up. So, yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. And, with a trauma. Oh, and then the other thing that I learned, I'll give you this note. At the time, I was going back to school to get my degree in entrepreneurism. However, when this happened, I changed my major to psychology so I could even just clearly come alongside my son to help navigate the human mind and how things get tripped up and what's going on and the triggers that'll cause this to happen. I just kept delving in, like, how do I help him as his mom, but yet get all the information that I can learn about these disorders and learn a new narrative, because I'm telling you, you then also have to become a different person because you're dealing with a different person that looks the same and is my son, but not my son. So, yes, 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 right, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yeah. And the thing about it, I learned in psychology that I'm labeled as secondary trauma because of his trauma. Yeah. And, but taking psychology really helped me become grounded. It really helped me start understanding about the chemical imbalances in the human brain. And I knew that I had to learn techniques and dialogue that was completely different. It was almost like learning a new language, being in a new country, learning new traditions and new cultures, and how you talk to this person versus that person. And see, oh my God, yes, ooh, heavy duties. Yeah, I mean, and so I had to read up on each of them. And then, not to mention now the medication that goes along with it. One thing about it that was the best advantage that I had as his mom, we had always had a loving, trusting relationship before all this happened. So, because of that, Jerome gave me power of attorney over his finances as well as his medical decisions. So, therefore, it gave me a voice. Every appointment he had, I was sitting right there in the doctor's office. And, when they give him a new med, I'm like, okay, we're going to try this. I'm going to do my research on it. And if this medication doesn't work, we're trying something else. Because there was one point, one of the meds he was on, he just started drooling. I mean, it was like, you're turning my son into something that you're not going to do. I recognize we've got this illness and we're trying to figure things out, but I'm going to tell you what you're not going to do is cause my son to be dysfunctional more than what he needs to be. We're not doing it. Yes. Yes, he's too young to have to deal with this where he's out of his mind, where he can't even function. And I'm like, this is not my son. And because his personality before this, he was the jokester in the family. He's the one that always had everybody laughing. So to see him go from this, we're not doing it. So he was on about 17 different medications, going through all, and then each medication having its different effects on him, gaining weight, doing I mean, it was just, when I tell you it was this maze that kept turning, jumping, I mean, and then I'm married, I'm working, it was, I don't even know how I still have my brain cells functioning, to be honest with you. I'm just saying. Yeah, probably not. Hmm. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't. Yes. Right. Let me tell you, had he not signed those documents at the time where I would be able to intercept and challenge his doctors, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of the doctors are so overwhelmed, and I get that. You know, they're just writing a prescription and going on to the next patient. I worked in healthcare for 26 years. I understand the dynamic of the beast after a while. You know, it just comes with the territory. So it's not to blame a doctor or physician, and that's what they're taught and trained in medical school. They're doing what they were taught to do. But I had to become my son's voice. I had to become his advocate. And I will say this as the most important thing that I can give to anyone that would hear this. If your child or your loved one or you're struggling with mental health challenges, you need to have someone in the family that trust is there before things get really bad in your illness, if because you never know what tomorrow may bring. You never know what may trigger you into a psychotic stage at any point in time. Have them sign that off, because I'm telling you, like you said, they're 18. If the child says, well, I don't want my mother in the room, you can't go in there. I don't want my mom making decisions for my, there's nothing you can do. And I'm telling you, I thank God that I didn't have that hope, that level of hopelessness. I had enough of it, but to not have any controls and having the ability to manage some of that when you saw things going wrong. And my son will tell you, if it wasn't for my mom, he said this many times, I would be dead, and I just know that. There's no way I would be alive today to talk about this to anyone. And when it's one of my loved ones and someone that I care about, I'll go to hell and back fighting for them on their behalf. It doesn't matter. So, I was never going to give up on my son. No matter how bad things looked, no matter how bad things they felt. No, he's a person that came out of my womb that God gave me, and that is part of my DNA. And it's the same thing like I've told people over the years. I said, if your son had cancer, you're just going to throw him out? I don't think so. You need to figure it out. And I know everybody doesn't have the capacity that God has given me, and I get that. But I told this one mother, I said, well, you better pray for some capacity then, okay? Because this is not something that your loved one wants. You know, these chemical imbalances happen in the brain, and until you understand the functionality of how all of that works in there, you see this outer shell of a human being that you wake up to. You go and put your makeup on, you go wash up, you go take a shower, you get dressed. But we're never thinking about, okay, right now as I'm talking to you, my heart is beating, the blood is pumping down to my feet, coming back up, my lungs, my respiratory, my nervous system, all of these different systems in your body are functioning without you doing anything. So I had to learn the functionality of how all these parts function in there, and just help him as much as I could, because I'm telling you, my son, I know he wouldn't be here today if I didn't take the steps that I did, and the bold steps. I even got my congressman involved. When this first happened, I wrote letters to the Naval Board of Corrections. I wrote letter to the VA administration. I got my congressman involved, my mayor involved. Honey, everybody on the East Coast knew that Million was like, oh God, here she comes. Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh yeah. Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. And I know when my son first got diagnosed with this, I told him, I said, Champion, I'm going to tell you what we're not going to do. As soon as we had the liberty to go into the room after that, I said, let me tell you something. What we're not going to do is have this become a stigma for your life. What we're not going to do is have you walk around feeling sorry for yourself. We're not going to do that. What we're not going to do is have you out here thinking that you can't receive help. I went down a whole list, and he hugged me and he said, Mom, thank you. And the tears just poured. We're not we're not going to walk into this like regular people do. I said, because you have a warrior, number one, as a mother. And number two, I love you. And you're not a criminal, okay? So we're not going to do the stigmatized look and feelings. And I know all of that also helped propped my son up for a successful journey. And have we had some pitfalls? We've had some up and downs where he's gotten off his meds, because that's a whole huge situation. And that did not come out well. And what happened to him? Because he stopped taking his meds. 9 years, he was doing very well, living on his own, driving, having therapy 3, 4 times a week. He was doing so well that his doctors, they recommend that he go to become a peer specialist, go for the training. Got a certificate. So he was navigating along with his therapist, with other veterans, facilitating, doing that well. And he was doing voiceovers. He's got a really deep voice, and so he was getting in the jail of things he liked to do, what he wanted to do. And he calls me one day, because we'd speak 3, 4 times a day sometimes, because I always like have to make sure things are, yeah, yeah, girl, I'm telling you. So I'm like, he calls me one day. He says, Mom, you never what? Never believe something that I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, he's like, Mom, I forgot to take my meds for a couple of days. I'm like, oh no, Jerome, that's not a good, no, why are you acting like, I'm thinking you're telling me some great news. No, no, I don't agree with. He's like, but Mom, you just don't understand. I don't feel lethargic and I feel so much better. And I'm like, okay, champion, I hear you and you're right. I don't understand because I don't take these meds. You're right. And I'm not going to dismiss any of your feelings. But what I do know is that you've been living a great life for the past 9 to 10 years, living on your own, managing your life, doing what you do. I said, what I would suggest and recommend, highly recommend, is that you call your doctor, ask them to possibly change your meds or reduce the dosage. But you're on some heavy meds and you should not just go off. You can't do this cold turkey, that you're going to have repercussions that you don't want to have to deal. He's like, Mom, yeah, but you just don't understand. I said, okay, I don't understand, but it's okay that I don't understand, but I'm also giving you a recommendation with my understanding self, okay? So I will accept that. However, this may not end well. And let me tell you, we went down the hill. He got so bad. I'm here in Texas. He's there in California. And I flew out of here probably 5 or 6 times during this episode that he had not taken his meds. Calling the VA to try to get them to come take him. He got to the point he's walking the streets of Woodland Hills in his underwear. That's how bad things got. And that had never happened before. So I have gone through when I tell you the entire spectrum when it comes to what mental health unwellness looks like, I have lived through it all. But me being, yes, darling. Oh, just, yes. Oh, number one, my husband will tell you if he was here with me, my wife is going to sleep every night at 9 o'clock, whether she leaves me here out in this living room or do what I do. But that woman there is going to get her rest. And that's the one thing I will tell any parent. And, I tell people I'm 68 years young. However, yes, love you. And how old are you? Girl, if I'm telling 68, yeah. Okay, well, come on in, girl. It's good over here, darling. It's good over here. Oh, you will. Oh, you will. But let me tell you, number one, my sleep is paramount. The thing about sleep, if you're just going to sleep and you're just laying there, but your brain is just won't stop, you're not getting your proper rest. You're laying down, but your body is not getting replenished. Those cells cannot rejuvenate with that much stress because it's mm-hmm, mm-mm. You can't. Yeah, yeah. So sleep, you have to take care of the physical needs of your body as well. You have to. When you're under this much stress, you have to ensure, because you as a caregiver, and it goes back to, the whole thing about the airline industry. They tell you, if you have a child with you, mask yourself first, then the child. Because if you don't, both of you are going to be gone, okay? So that whole philosophy is also with caregiving. You have to ensure that you're still taking care of yourself. And because I became a certified life and mental health coach, I know all type of techniques that I teach my own clients. Mindfulness. The mind has a mind of its own, whether you want to accept that or not. Thoughts come in, you have no control of those thoughts. So each Saturday morning, I have 3 people that I take care of. Me, myself, and I. All 3 of us. I have one of those beautiful garden tubs. I have a whole elaborate setting that I go through with my candles. Oh my God. I sit there, I have on my rack there, I've got my cherries, my grapes, I may have a glass of wine, I may have a cup of coffee, I may have tea, have water, some crackers, and my husband knows he doesn't even go in there because That is my time where I get away from the world. Sometimes I just lay back and relax and listen to mindfulness music. I do relaxation techniques where I breathe in each morning, hold that breath for 4 to 5, 6 seconds. So when I tell you I love me, myself, and I, and take care of this one, oh yeah, yeah. My husband will tell you, oh no, Million is going to take care of Million, okay? Yeah. Especially as a mom, because that nurturing component is, yeah, yeah, right. Yes, 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 absolutely. Yes, yes, right. But yeah, I take care of those three people. My husband is like, oh no, my wife, she's into her zone. No one's talking. No one. You don't even go nowhere near. And yeah, because I know at the capacity and the level that I live every day, I put out more energy and extend more energy than the average human being. I know that. People say to me, Million, how do you do so much of all of what you're doing? I have like about 4 or 5 different operations right now that I'm doing. And each one is void of each other. They're not even commingled. I mean, I've got a program, a national program that I'm two national programs that I've already put together. One is with the law enforcement and first responders that I'm working with the sheriff here and the chief of police here that I've done in North Carolina, California, doing it here. That's one platform. The book, my second, well, I've written a few books, but I have another national program I'm running, Mental Health Coalition for Women and Families. I have an anthology. I've opened up my own publishing. So I'm doing, honey, I haven't, I've got, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I will tell you this, and then the other thing that I did, right? So this is my book when I first wrote the military mom in a mission and advocate for mental health, right? Okay. I had to go a step further. Now I have the book in Spanish, so we're going to be releasing that. Yes, I don't stop. Girl, please, I'm just all over the planet. Mm. Hmm. 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 Oh, that is profound. OMG. Oh my, oh my God. Oh, oh my God. That is really who I am. I have always turned pain into purpose. No matter what it is, no matter, I just don't even care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, oh my God. Look, this is what I've just put together. Oh, okay. Oh, other way. Yeah. So what this is an anthology. I have put together a book where each author, well, let me give you a little tidbit. For years, when this situation happened with Jerome, I kept saying, because political arena and mandate is all my life, right? I would say to my husband and different people throughout the past 20 years or so after this initially happened, I said, oh, I've got to get to Congress and help change some of these laws that govern, mental health in our country because, people just don't know. And seeing the thing about it, anyone in your family can be susceptible to a mental health breakdown at any time. So one day, my husband and I was sitting down having breakfast, and he says to me, you know what, Million? I know for years you've been talking about you're going to go to Congress and help change the laws that govern mental health. He said, and we already know you can do that with no problem. And he said, but I'm going to offer you a suggestion. I'm like, oh, okay, what's that? He's like, wouldn't it be much more impactful if you had a team of mothers or women who went with you? And I was like, oh my God, you just gave me a phenomenal idea that, let me tell you, I'm like, husband, I don't even know if you realize what you just said or did to me because, oh, let me tell you, and the Learjet is off the tarmac, okay? So I sat one day just really kind of trying that on and thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, I need to have a title to kind of explain what that looks like. So that's when Mental Health Coalition for Women and Families came about. And I'm like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing to have a minimum of 50 women from representing each state of the United States of America. So when we go to Congress, there's a voice representative of each state. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I put that medium together? What does that look like? So my brain, and once I get an idea, it just, it floods. The gates just like take over. So the next thought was write a book, invite the 50 authors, have them each write a chapter in the book and charge them for it. So anyway, so I'm sitting there and the other thought comes, okay, let me start calling some people that I know, some of their family members, they've dealt with some challenges in mental health. So there's one particular friend of mine, girlfriend that lives in California. I knew her son was in the Navy. He got out and she was having, some challenges with him. We talk every now and then. So I called her one day and I was like, Pam, I got a question to ask you. I'm like, gave her the backdrop, how, what I just explained to you. I said, would you be interested in writing a chapter in a book if I could get like 50 women? She says, oh yes, Million. I even have a couple of other girlfriends. Their sons are dealing, they're in the military now. And that's where it started from. So, oh, let me tell you, and I got to email you the scope of the project. So the bottom line is, you've heard, and I think I may have shared this with you, salt and pepper back in the day, push it real good. Yeah. So years back, I had gone to a 3-day conference. There was breakout sessions for different workshops you could attend. So there was one about completing your book or something. So at that time, I hadn't even written a book. I think I probably had just started it. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I definitely need to sign up for this. So I was like the first one that got in the room in this workshop. And as I'm sitting, and I sat in the second row. And then in walks Salt from Salt and Pepper with 2 other women. And so because my brain is always rolling, so at the end of the session, of course, the facilitator, she's like, do any of you have any questions or comments or concerns, anything, I didn't cover that maybe you still would like some answers to if you're, starting to write a book. And my hand immediately went up, of course. So I'm telling the story and, about the book. And the woman says, Million, stop talking. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, no problem. She says, I would like everyone in here to get up and stand up and pray and put their arm towards you, and we're going to pray for you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Start praying, and tears are starting to fall down. So at that point, Salt turns around, and my eyes are closed. I didn't know who it was, but she grabbed my hands really tight. And after the prayer was over, she says to me, I would like to write the foreword on your book. So I bust out crying 50 more million Niagara Falls. I'm like, oh my God, this isn't happening. You gotta be, this is not real. Move the story forward. Her sister that was there with her and her publicist was there with her. The sister's son suffers with mental health challenges. So she was like, even during my career, getting a Grammy, traveling all over the world, we were dealing with some things in our own family. And so I was like, that's why I tell you, you just never know who's been struck with this, at any given point in time. Long story short, the publicist, we exchanged name, number, information, email. So, of course, I was still like at the beginning of the book, so it's going to take me a while, to complete it. So, make a long story short here, the publicist is no longer working for her. So I sending emails, no response. She would always respond, and I every now and every 3 or 4 months I'd make sure that I would just reach out to her. She'd respond. So at a point when I was like ready for her to do the forward, I get no response, and I didn't have Salt's number, so I'm like, oh my God. Well, me and my crazy self, my daughter, she's in Vegas. My sister we're in Vegas. Salt and Pepper were performing, and some other artists. Let me tell you, I told my sister, I'm going down there to the stage, and Salt is coming off that stage. She says, Million. I said, no, no, no. I know what I'm going to do, or either I'm going to go up on the stage and get her attention. So they're like, Million, you need to stop. I said, oh, please, you already know who I am. I'm just telling you guys so you know that's where I'm going. So at the end of their performance, I'm down at the end of the stage, and I'm yelling, Salt, Salt, it's Million. I need you to come down here. I need to. She comes down off the stage. She did. And I said to her, oh my God, I had to write my book without you doing the forward. She said, oh, Million, I'm so sorry. That publicist, I no longer have. I said, well, let me tell you something right now. What you're going to do, young lady, because I took my phone. I said, you put your cell number in here. I don't want to go through your people anymore. I can't do this. So she did. She did. She did already. She's my national brand ambassador. We have a whole, oh my God, when you see the social media that's getting ready to hit, yeah, it's everything has just, I have to get on for the next book. But anyway, and I'm going to leave you with this. But I hired a literary agent, right? She called me just yesterday. They have put together book coverage for potential film adaptation, because I've always said I know that this is a film. I know it. On my vision board in my office, it's up there with a picture of me in the director's chair with this book cover. Yes, yes. So, and the thing about it, that's the first book, film, right? Military Mom on a Mission. But with the Mental Health Women's Coalition, I want that to be a docu-series on Netflix. So each chapter shares that different traumatic story of each woman sharing. And then we're going to Congress, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to have a nice, healthy narrative about what needs to happen. So I know whoever president at that time, they'll be putting me on the commission because they won't have a choice but to. So I just put it out there. I tell people this is what I need you to do, and it happens, and I keep it moving. So, oh, I have to. Yes, yes. Yes. Oh my God. Oh, much love to you.